Oh, well, thank you to Rocky Daroni for spending his morning with us. That was a fantastic moment of inspiration and the sharing of knowledge. But let's move on to something that's very important and happening currently. President Akufo-Addo yesterday released the list of ministers that he intends to work with. Some have been retained, others have been shown the door. Dr. Amakye Boateng is a political science lecturer at KNUST, and he will join us on this conversation. Good morning, Doc. Well, thank you for giving us this morning. So when the list came out and you went through it, what were some of the initial names that jumped out at you?
Let me say good morning to your viewers and express appreciation for this opportunity. We really we're looking forward to, the big names, Amakye Boateng, Bupe, they all did come, the finance minister. I mean, they've all done a great job. So we're not surprised at all that they are all retained. But then we got an understanding that a different mindset is at work at this material moment, the second term of Akufo-Addo's leadership here in Ghana. And in a way, there has been some policy learning. He was going ahead to, he's going ahead to maximize the gains, attained in the past 4 years. Somehow he put up some information, and in that we got to know that he's coming out with a leaner government. He's cutting down the number of ministers, and then the merging of some of the ministries too. So this rationality did dawn on us, and eventually the implication was that some ministers definitely were going to go. You want to look at it from our angle and say that a team did an evaluation of the work of everybody, and those that he thinks, not necessarily that didn't do well, but those that he thinks have the capacity, the technical skills needed this time round to, work with him and consolidate the gains are definitely those he will retain. So I think this is a sense that I get of the rationality behind, the new list, which is out now, and we relating to the Education Ministry, has come out as a body whose work the president admires so much. He retains the two of them and make them all substantive ministers. It's big. So these are some of the initial, stuff that came to us when the names came out. Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so with the Education Ministry, for example, you talk about the fact that he retained the two of them. So obviously they did well. But what's interesting is that even though he retained the two of them, he did move one of them to the Ministry of Energy. So the question that is on my mind is that, is it then a matter of skill, or is he rewarding loyalty? Because, for example, education and energy are quite different. I feel like it may take a different set of skills to be able to run those ministries. So are you then rewarding loyalty, or are you putting the best people or tying the best people with the best positions?
Generally, as a minister of state, you need leadership skills that should apply, properly, irrespective of the particular place you find yourself. You are not necessarily going to be, the person to directly, physically man the issues, specific issues, policy implementation. You are not going to go down there to get things done. But generally, as a minister of state, you need leadership skills. You need general technical skills to get people to do what is to be done to achieve the stated objectives. So I like to believe that these qualities definitely did manifest in the education ministry and of course in several other ministries. But then in education, you see, the flagship program was such a challenge and a daunting task at that moment. Who gave Nana-Addo any chance that he was going to be able to surmount the challenge he himself had taken up? I do recall that he did appear on a BBC program, Hard Talk, and over there definitely certain issues came out. He was not ready with several questions that were asked, but that notwithstanding, when he got the opportunity and he appointed these two gentlemen to lead the charge, they've executed their mandate with excellence. So they have demonstrated those skills that could be deployed elsewhere. So it's not just loyalty. I think it's in the demonstration of skills, leadership, the ability to get things done, in a required manner. I think these are the stuff that have manifested, and those are, being exploited again.
Do you think that the reduction of numbers and when it comes to the ministers is a purely political movement to assuage the masses because, we complained about the number, or is this perhaps a more efficient way of running government, having lesser numbers?
Generally speaking, political scientists examine big governments from different perspectives and then small governments. When you have a big government, the government sends a signal, and the understanding is that you're going to have the state lead in the developmental agenda of the country. When you have a lean government, the state is going to follow the private sector in the execution of the developmental agenda of the country. So big governments in themselves are not necessarily a waste, the way we put it. It had to do with the strategy of the government to bring about development to the people. It has to do with that.
Okay.
And we want to give Akufo-Addo the benefit of the doubt. This time around, he put out, foundation is laid and he's going in for consolidation. So yes, he realized that financial issues are going to play out. So he himself has a vested interest in sort of optimizing the resources available. And one way of doing that is to come out with a smaller government. Now that the foundations of the various flagship programs have been laid, I think he's ready to go with the leaner government.
I mean, he did say that some of the ministries that he had scrapped or some of those he had asked to step down had finished the work that had been set out for them. So I completely get your point there. But, another thing that interests me is the Minister of State that will be designated to look and oversee state-owned enterprises and push that forward. And we've talked about, obviously, how privatization, there's been a lot of privatization over the years and how we've really lost out on a lot of Nkrumah's vision when it comes to, state-owned enterprises and what we can do, what the state can do for us. What are your thoughts on that? Are you perhaps as tickled by that as I am, or it doesn't really excite you?
I really move beyond the emotional response, but then I look at the challenge that Nana-Addo has taken up, because historically, SOEs in Ghana have not done well. Generally in Ghana and also in Africa. In fact, it's on the basis of this that the IMF and the World Bank have always advocated that the state takes a step back and allow the private sector to lead the charge. Nana-Addo is significantly a different person. The political party that nurtured him, ordinarily should not produce the Nana-Addo that we see now. Someone who goes in for a large government, someone whose policies are tailored to meet the needs of the grassroots. You wouldn't want to say populist policies per se, but he goes in for social-oriented policies. And so it sends you thinking. He appears, I don't know, I've not spoken to him before, but he appears to be an admirer of Nkrumah. He believes the public sector can do well. The SOEs, and we have now a whole ministry, to see to the SOEs. It's also a signal he's sending, irrespective of the fact that he's giving us a leaner government. He's still interested in pushing a particular agenda to let the state lead the developmental, implementation of the policies to bring about development, to the good people of Ghana. And so I think that is the understanding there. But the challenge is making it work. This whole mindset of people going into public office to personally appropriate public resources is still with us. We call it the politics that is going to bring about the development. Are people going to be able to, exercise that self-restraint, given the fact that governments in the Fourth Republic have not been able to really instill that discipline into their appointees? Governments in the Fourth Republic have failed on that. And we realize that the office that is to ensure accountability have always been struggling to get, public officers to do what is expected of them. And sitting governments have hardly taken a hard, a situation, a hard look, a hard response at infractions coming from the appointees. So to me, that is the challenge.
So let's move to what is going to be like in Parliament in the next few weeks when the approval process has to go. Now, we know that we have an equal number of NDC and MPP parliamentarians on the approval committees. How do you envisage that the approval process is going to be like, or the vetting process? Especially the NDC have a very loud voice, and these are the president's nominees. What do you envisage that being like?
I teach political science, and my approach has always been that politicians are not necessarily altruistic. Like all of us, they are all self-interested individuals. But then the dynamism in democracy brings pressure to bear on them to address themselves to the public good. So in the context of this, and given the fact that their activities are, shown live on TV, and also the dynamics that manifested in the last elections, gives us some indication that the Ghanaian electorate is coming of age. And so if you sit in Parliament and an issue that Ghanaians consider to be of a public interest, and you pitch yourself against it unnecessarily, I expect you to be punished come the next elections. And definitely politicians are afraid of the next elections. And so they are not going to have their own way. They are going to be forced to, this time around, serve Ghana's best interest. I think when a policy is good, they will move, as a team to address it. When a policy has issues, there will be spirited, arguments and disputations, and at the end of the day, the right thing will be done.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and thank you for your thoughts. That's Dr. Amakye Boateng. He's a political science lecturer at KNUST. Well, we're moving straight into our relationship conversation this morning, and it's an interesting story. And take a listen to this, and when we come back, we will have that conversation.
Married to this woman 25 years ago. She came into the marriage with 2 baby girls, and I've taken care of them all this while. I don't have biological children. Now it's 2 weeks to the older girl's wedding. A wedding I've partially sponsored. Yeah, I've spent almost 30,000 Ghana cedis already. Now, my stepdaughter wants her biological father, who abandoned her for 25 years, to walk her down the aisle. And when I complained to my wife, her mother, she told me to stop being petty and let the girl have her way. Anyway, I promised to give the girl 40,000 Ghana cedis to cater for her wedding reception, but I've changed my mind. Now, mother and daughter think I want to mess up their day. Well, am I being petty with this latest move?
Well, we'll take your thoughts when we come back, and we'll have that conversation, so don't go anywhere.